A search for God expanded. Cooperation. Introduction to cooperation. Need for cooperation. Method of obtaining cooperation. Realization of cooperation. 1. Introduction to cooperation. Finally, be all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren. Affirmation. Not my will but thine, O Lord, be done in me and through me. Let me ever be a channel of blessings, today, now, to those that I contact in every way. Let my going in, my coming out be in accord with that thou would have me do, and as the call comes, here am I, send me, use me. Cooperation in the physical is defined as acting or operating jointly with others, concurring with others in action or effort. In the spiritual it is more. It is losing sight of self and becoming a channel through which blessings may flow to others. The blessing is cooperation in action. Whether in the spiritual or physical, action is necessary to put cooperation into operation, thus those who would come together for a common cause must have united action in the pursuit and realization of a common end. The best in life is ours, not at the expense of others, but in harmonious cooperation. In every successful organization the law is in effect. The heavens declare the hand which formed them was the hand of unity, order, and harmony. All nature follows the same law. Each part of the human body performs its duty without a thought of the other, yet fully depending each upon the other. When self is lost in the ideal, cooperation is the natural result. It is the natural consequence of self-service, self-sacrifice, self-bewilderment in him. In whatever state we find society, let us meet it upon its own level. As we look up, we lift it. That is cooperation. The Edgar Cayce Readings. Introduction to Cooperation. To crucify self's ideals to the whims or fancies of any man is not development for the body. Find thy ideal spiritually. This is obeying the law of man and the law of God. Then, do make thyself coordinate with the laws of God, with the laws of nature, with the laws of man, and you will find that thy abilities will mean much. A self-analysis of the desires and wishes, and the fixing of self, as toward some ideal outside of self will enable the body to better meet mentally and materially those conditions and problems that present themselves from time to time. Seek the spiritual life, in and through the mental application of same. Live it, not profess it alone. Let the activities, the deeds of the body, speak rather than the words of the mouth. And we will find more of those things really sought by the entity may be accomplished. Hold fast to that thou hast purposed in thine heart to do. For, having set foot on the path, look not backward. Remember Lot's wife. Look up, lift up, even as ye may lift others in thy service, in thy activity in instructing in all or any of those channels in which ye choose to give expression to the glories of nature and of God, in the Christ consciousness. Is what is holding me back physical or laziness? Rather that of indecision, incontriteness. Purge thy mind, thy body. Make thyself one with him. Why do I not make a more continuous effort? Is thy purpose a single one? Or art thou seeking, without putting into practice that thou knowest? The less and less of self, then, the more and more of thy will, not mine, be done in me and through me, the greater becomes the abilities, the greater becomes the harmonies, the greater joy there is seen in the experiencing of associations and activities with others. Do not allow hindrances of not being as others to cause too great a depressing effect upon the purposes, aims, hopes of the body. Know that the author of life, the author of hope, even as in him, is able to bring that in thine own experience in and through which he may be the greater blessings to others, and contribute thus daily in thy associations with others, a hope, and a glorifying of his holy name. in a cooperative manner, to show themselves approved unto God, rightly divining the words of truth, should be the purpose, the aim, the desire of each and every individual, that each soul would find development for itself to become a better channel, a better servant of the Lord that each seeks to manifest in its individual life, as to make for an influence that may induce or lead others to make their lives as channels for a greater service in His name. And, as He has given, a new commandment give I unto you, that ye love one another, that ye keep as a service unto Him that gave, if ye love me, keep my commandments, and I will come and abide with thee. I will not leave thee comfortless, but will give that ye ask in my name, believing, for I go to the Father, and ye that abide in me abide in the Father also. Let those that are sincere, that are honest with themselves, seek not the differences, but where they may cooperate. And as they do, you will find they are of many faiths, many creeds, yet they find one common purpose, good to thy fellow man. So, as those that have found in this vision, in this interpretation, or in that promotion, or in that experience of this or that nature, seek rather the common interest, where there is cooperation, rather than the differences. And then if any group, if any organization, if any association has not this, it has not the full soul. Each of you gathered here have your own individual development. Yet as each seeks to be a channel of blessings to the fellow man, each attunes self to the throne of universal information. And there may be accorded you that which may be beneficial, not only in thine own experience, but that which will prove helpful, hopeful, in the experience of others. Many an one may question you as to the sources, as to the channel through such information that may be given you at this time has come. Know it has reached that which is as high for each of you in your respective development, as you have merited, and do merit. And has accorded and does accord to the realm of light, that which may be aidful and helpful in thine own experience, and in the experience of those that ye in your service to thy fellow man may give unto others. We would counsel that the entity analyze and study same, not other than that which answers within self. For, know that within is the divine, and that alone which answers to the divine within may be creative, helpful or good in the experience of the entity. It is not that which ye know that counts, but that ye do about it in thy relationships to others. Whether by the act of volition, or the act of commission. For, that ye are speak so loud, seldom is what ye say heard for long unless the activities and words agree. Has any progress been made in the last 2 or 3 incarnations? There is progress whether ye are going forward or backward. The thing is to move. Do not condemn self. Rather make self's life one of service to an ideal, and leave the whole in the hands of the creative forces that rule the destinies of every soul. Make self more and more in accord with that which is of His ways, the Master's ways, and leave the results in His hands. For, in Him, we live and move and have our being. Let thy prayer then be, rather, not my way, Lord. Rather have thine own way with the activities of myself, my mind, my body, my soul. Now give this body the knowledge of why the soul was fated to enter into all these experiences in order to develop of its own free will to perfection, and then return to God, when God first created souls in a perfect state. Was it to force the spirit to choose with its will the righteous path to God, in spite of any circumstances and conditions? Was it to see if that which once created perfect would return to the perfect? Explain and illustrate. This we find is manifest in the life of the lowly Nazarene. Man was made a little lower than the angels, yet with that power to become one with God, while the angel remains the angel. In the life, then, of Jesus we find the oneness made manifest through the ability to overcome all of the temptations of the flesh, and the desires of same, through making the will one with the Father. Oft did He give to those about Him those injunctions, those who have seen me have seen the Father, and in man, He, the Son of Man, became one with the Father. Man, through the same channel, may reach that perfection, even higher than the angel, though he attend the God. In the man, called Jesus one of the ones who present truths to the learned, to the ignorant, to the lowly, to those in high estate. Never seeking to push self in any manner, yet ever meeting every question that is presented to him in the questioning, whether of the lowly, of those taken in sin, or those taken questioning of authority. Yet ever a social physical being, ever one dining well, ever one knowing to be of high estate, yet making self in the way and manner to meet the needs of all, even unto the death on the cross. And as this entity gathers the various lessons, as are to be the correlation of the truths as are found in those messages of past, in the day when the Prince of Peace gave his message, in the days when the insurrections arose and by force these truths were attempted to be made statutory, and in the hours when peace again is sought, and in the present day, when the various truths are given as lessons in the daily walks of life, then may this entity through these forces gain that access to that at oneness that gives the greater message to the many. See? 2. Need for cooperation. We must put cooperation into action in our thinking. Our adverse thoughts have such a paralyzing effect that they will not only retard our own development, but also will build barriers for those who might seek to aid us. The Master could do no mighty works in his own village because of the people's unbelief in him. Thoughts are deeds and may become crimes or miracles in their application. It is necessary for the accomplishment of any aim, for the reaching of any goal, and for the attainment of any blessing for self or humanity, that we have one mind, one aim, and one purpose. As we seek, in our way, to cooperate in being of service to others, we are lifted up. Let us, then, express the creative force within us in such a way that it may bring hope, peace, and understanding into the lives of others, that they too, in their way, may seek to be channels of blessings. Then, let us attune ourselves to the highest spiritual force. This will come when we are in accord with His will. Let us exercise our conscious mind by holding these two thoughts before us. We must lose ourselves in the Christ. Our every thought and our every deed must be in harmony with the intent and purposes of the best that is within us. What is the mind of the Christ that we should seek? As we open our minds, our hearts, and our souls, that we may be channels of blessings, we then have the mind of the Christ, who took upon himself the burden of the world. So may we, in our little spheres, take upon ourselves the burdens of our world. The joy, peace, and happiness that may be ours are found in doing for the other person. Gaining an understanding of the laws that pertain to right living in all its phases makes our minds in attune with creative forces. We have the mind of Christ by putting into action that which we know. The Edgar Cayce readings. Need for cooperation. The application of will, as toward influences in the life, alters or changes the development of the inner man, the soul. When these are in accord with the divine, or the creative influences, hold to that which is good, cleave to that which is right, irrespective of the thought or the speech of those who would be questioned in same. In the building up, keep thyself aright. Avoid even the appearance of evil. Keep so that committed unto him will be answerable in the acts, material and mental, for thoughts are deeds, and may become crimes or miracles. These are within thine own making. Think right. Live right. Be right. Let that mind be in thee as was in him, be not discouraged, be not dismayed. For his purpose is to bless, not to curse man. For man's soul, thy soul, is knit with his. And the way, in the fuller knowledge thereof, is in patience as manifested in Jesus, the Christ. I am the vine, ye are the branches, he that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. How can good and strong habits be built up, so as to eliminate mistakes and weaknesses? Let that mind be in thee as was in him, that ye will go about doing good, but not as one that is other than equal to the highest, yet in the lowliest manner. For, he that would be the greatest among you will be the servant of all. For how does one cleanse the mind? By the pouring out, the forgetting, the laying aside of those things that easily beset, and filling same with pure, fresh water that is of the eternal life, that is of the eternal goodness, as may be found in him who is the light, the way, the truth, the vine, the bread of life and the water of life. These things are those influences that purify. What should I do to improve my mental condition in regards to ailments? Think in wholly constructive manner, that is, as this. There is creative in the system, that which may meet the needs of the physical body in its everyday activity, and sufficient to store energy for the resuscitation of used forces. Make that known in self. As the mind accepts a condition as being positive, it acts upon that condition, yet when negative forces are continually set before self, and expected and the expectancy is as of such to make the reaction of such a nature as to destroy, then negative forces become the more active. Necessary, then, that the body, any body, keep the near normal of a constructive building in the mind. For mind is the builder. Why can't I keep happy, prosperous thoughts, rather than my mind full of distress? In concentrating on those things that have to do with the mental body, this is a growth just as the practice of any activity. Make more periods of silent meditation, as this, not necessarily these words, but the import of same in thine own words. Father, God, in the Christ thou hast promised to hear the prayer of those that seek to do thy biddings. I claim that promise in Jesus, the Christ. I am thine. Use my mind, my body, in service as thou seest fit. And in every call, may I answer, here am I, Lord, use me. In the first considerations, the body should be mindful of the physical forces of the body, that the body may keep a well-rounded, even balance. Do not allow anxiety, nor those conditions that bring success or distraughtness, to force the physical activities to such an extent as to bring an unbalanced condition in the physical system. 4. A body to function under stress is to break down either the mental or the physical result. For upon the mental is builded that which makes for success, either in development of one's own soul forces, or for that which manifests in the personality, as the material things of this earth's experience. In the application of will does one find the way of development in and through the earth's plane. For will is that factor that may guide, guard, direct, ruin or make, the inner man. For it is the will that is in accord or in opposition to the divine will as keeps every activity, every life, in motion. In will's forces, then, does there come the creative or destructive. Hence oft has it been said, thoughts are deeds. They may become crimes or miracles. In the action or application of will toward thought, these are will's influences in individual life. How can I aid my son? Being patient, being gentle. This may sound somewhat as being contradictory, yet as is seen in self, if thou art over-anxious then so does it create that anxiety in those environs about him. Thus, not loving indifference, but rather as the appreciations of the opportunities that are given thee in having such a son, and in the glory to the Father for the gift of such an association. These create. For, in blessing I will bless thee, saith the Lord. Then, as ye bless those in word, in deed, that thou hast found, that thou hast met, so does it increase about them those associations of the creative forces, and influences of the great God love. And thus thoughts are deeds, and as their currents run they become miracles in the experiences of those in whom the love, or the blessing is held. I would like to know something about my husband, if I could help him any more. As thou hast builded in thine self, as thou hast mitted out to him, hold to same. For these, as it has been pointed to thee, are the channels in which thou hast been the inspiration oft to many, as thou hast been to him. Hold, then, to that. And thou wilt find that thoughts in self are things, and they take hold in the minds, yea, the souls, of individuals. Is there anything I could do to help my husband in his affairs? Thoughts are deeds. Do not be other than optimistic. Let him know day by day that thy thoughts, thy prayers are with him in his uprisings, in his faults. Do not condone them, but do not condemn them. Let him know that thou art indeed a helpmeet, not a ball and chain, not one that would persuade or would direct, but a helpmeet. Remember this, which may be said to be as a law, in self, in the earth, in its relations to others, like begets like. If you would have friends, be friendly. If you would have loving associations, show thine self lovely. And that ye so in mind, in activity, ye must reap in thine own experience. Know that the Lord liveth, and manifests in and through thee. And that born of the Spirit in thine mental self, may find expression in the material life. For mind, in the mental, is the builder, and bringeth forth fruits worthy of that which is held in the inmost self in its relationships of self to things, to conditions, to peoples. For thoughts are things, and as the currents run they become miracles or crimes in the experiences of individual life. There are principles that need to be applied in the daily life in its relationships one to another. There are the laws that are unchangeable, and that are ever creative and constructive in their influence. For, otherwise there are turmoils that overtake those who disregard same, that are unseen, and not easily found by material reasoning. For, they are the results of thoughts. Know that thoughts are things, and as their currents run they may become crimes or miracles. Are thy thoughts always prompted by the desire to be of help to others? Or are they the more often prompted by the desire to use others as thy stepping stones to better things for thyself? This can only be answered in self, according to what is thy ideal. Who is the author of thy ideal? Give advice as to the maintenance of harmony in the family circle, inharmoniousness probably due to my wife and daughter's nervousness. Not wholly to nervousness, or to illness of others. The body is prone to keep self and self's activities, whether of the mental, physical, or spiritual side of life, in such a position as to be able to conscientiously shift the blame of whatever may happen to another. This is not correct. Let the body learn that he that would have harmony must be harmonious first within his own self, and such radiation from self will bring to the home, to business, to friends, such a peace that brings harmonious contentment, through not necessarily satisfied. But be content with that in hand, and so act, so live, and so manifest harmony through self's action, as to bring that to pass. For what is sown one also reaps. When the act either by physical deed, implication, or word, is such as to put even the question mark, as to what is the intent and purpose, dissatisfaction is created. And remember, thoughts are deeds and may become crimes or miracles. Apply that in the relations with the home, and the harmony as is sought will be the outcome. Not with an eye service of, that I may have my own way, or that I may bring others to my own way of acting, or own way of thinking, but let thine thought, thine act, be so in harmony with that of the inner life as to radiate harmony. For when one looks about in all nature of every character, the first law is harmony, and is of divine origin, even as life, and when same is not in accord with that of the creative energy, or God, discord is the result. Should a 257 plan to devote his entire time to the work, as he has planned, and how can he accomplish it now? Rather not as he has planned. Let him prepare himself as God has planned. Be a channel of blessing, not tell the forces nor God how to do his work, how to contact individuals, how to interest individuals. Rather be that channel through which individuals may give an opportunity to approach the throne itself, and cast not thine pearls before swine, nor so conduct thine own self, that thine good is evil spoken of, nor thine evils are good spoken of. Let the day be sufficient unto the evils thereof, for thoughts are deeds and may become miracles or crimes. For in the association of individuals one with another, as in the physical organization, as this develops in such a way and manner, as the whole services of the body may be given, has it been sanctified, purified, clarified, as to its purposes and aims, then the way and the manner will be shown. As conditions of the material natures clarify themselves, as they will, Do not mix material conditions with spiritual forces. Do not attempt to serve God and mammon. Do not serve thine neighbor with the one hand and draw from his pocket with the other. Rather let thy yeas be yeas and thy nay be nay, knowing that as is given for the increase is from the giver of all things. How can I ward against such periods of depression? By so filling the inner self with those things as make for a growing in grace, knowledge, understanding, perception. Be far-seeing. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Remembering that, as has just been given, in expressing or in manifesting in self, know that whether it be from within or from without, the motivation is active, that a soft word turneth away wrath, but grievous words stirreth up anger, that within self the soft word is as oil upon troubled waters, and without is as of him saying, Peace, be still. When there was given, if thine eye offend thee, pluck it out. If thine hand offend thee, cut it off. It was meant that it is better that thou enterest into glory, or understanding, which is glory, than that the whole body be cast into perdition. For that means trouble, turmoil, strife, dissension, disorder, inharmony, and such, and these be the children of darkness. But, as was also given that through inspiration all things have been tamed but the tongue, that the unruly member, with same we curse God and also bless him. Then, when others say, do, or act so that from without thee depression comes, make self be gentle, be kind, be patient, be long-suffering, and if look or speech is made let it be in gentleness, in loving kindness, and not stirring up, either in self or without. For in so doing we overcome, that as has been termed by some as karma, or we overcome, and put to rout the children of darkness that prevent the light. What is the darkness? What is light? There is no need for the sun, for he will be the light. There, without him, will neither be needed the sun, for his face will be turned against all such acts, deeds, thoughts, for thoughts being deeds breed the children of light or darkness, dependent upon the manner in which the will of an entity, a soul, holds up. Then, whether from within or from without, know he is able to keep thee against any condition that arises from within. As thou hast been a blessing and curse to many, let thy yeas be yea and thy nays be nay, now. For, as he has given, now is the accepted time, now. If ye will but listen, the right voice will speak from within. Be patient, and be persistent in it. How can I help to make the one in authority in my present sphere of employment fully understand the weaknesses and dangerous conditions which exist and which threaten the structure he has builded? I ask this because the welfare of so many people are dependent on its integrity, not for myself, and to avoid his ultimate disappointment and disillusionment. Who is to be the judge? Only in the manner as indicated may these be laid before those in authority, or that individual. And then leave the results. Do right yourself, see. Lay out the reasons, to be sure, and be sure they are based not on just material reasonings. For the physical conditions, the social conditions, the economic conditions, all the phases of human experience are a result of that mentally builded. Then lay before him the conditions, magnified as to the best of thy abilities. Not as for thy will but as to what dangers exist, and the reasons why. Be sure they are founded in spiritual things. Then leave the results to God. Do not tell him how to do it, for he knows. And as the entity has loved much, much has been and is the love that is returned to the entity. Yet at times, because of ideals of individuals this has seemed, or appeared to the entity, to be little considered by others. Disappointments, then in these relationships, have at times brought sorrow, deep thought to the entity. Again the entity has only found peace when returning to that which has been indicated, though he slay me, yet will I love him the more. Or, as given again, unto whom shall I go? Thou, O Lord, art the words of eternal life. These as we find are the various phases of urges latent from the astrological aspects, that bring the deeper urges, as indicated from the high mental ability, the strength of the entity in its reliance wholly upon the truth, the promise, the love that is indicated in him. Hold fast to that which has so oft been determined in thyself, and ye shall find peace, harmony, as is his promise, coming unto thee. There cannot be happiness or joy save when self has found peace within self. Condemn not, that ye be not condemned, but as that peace he hath promised comes to thy consciousness, more and more the material environs will become in keeping with the needs of that to make thee aware of his presence abiding with thee. Along what lines should entity study to prepare for entity's destiny in the cosmic plane? Study to show thyself approved unto that thou art set, as thy ideal in the spiritual plane, rightly divining the words of truth. For truth is life, life is light. And he is life. He is light. He is the creative force in thine experience. And keep self unspotted from condemnation of the world. Give guidance how to bring this idea into material manifestation. Work it same as ye would the seam upon a garment. Ye do not stitch the whole seam at a flash, but one stitch at a time. Hence, as has been given, it is precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, making practical application. If ye would be happy, it is the law, ye must make others happy. Ye cannot know happiness unless ye experience that ye have brought happiness, hope, joy, into the experience of another. This does not mean, then, becoming long-faced, melancholy, but rather joyous, glad, hopeful. But neither does it mean folding thy hands in indolence, rather as has been given, the harvest is white, the laborers are few. If ye would know him, be up and doing. For as it was said, he went about doing good. Not being good, but doing good, which is the being good for something, mentally, spiritually. Mind is the builder. Then, if ye would have less strife and more harmony, build same in thy daily relationships. For when ye complain of the faults of others, do ye not build such barriers that you cannot speak kindly or gently to those whom ye have felt, or do feel have defrauded, or would defraud thee? How spoke the Master? It is indeed necessary that offences come, but woe unto him by whom they come. But if thine enemy smite thee, turn the other cheek. Living that, being that, is to know the life eternal. And only in the manifesting of same, and bringing into materiality such experiences, may ye indeed know the joy even of living. For how gave he? Ye would not have known, had I not come. And his promises are sure. For though the heavens, yea, and the earth, pass, his words will not pass away. Then in him ye can, ye may, believe. Regarding work, how may I best meet the conditions surrounding my work at the office? As we find, there are in the abilities of each entity, and especially in this, those necessary capabilities for meeting the conditions as related to the character of the work chosen. So far as the individual work is concerned, we find little disturbances in this direction. There are within the mental self, and in some of the associations, some antagonisms that make for unpleasant activities and unpleasant surroundings at times. But know within self that there is the divine purpose, that there are the divine causes. Do not let animosities nor resentments nor those things that make for differences and hindrances disturb thee. For these only build towards those things that produce strife and contention, which if held to will make for dissatisfaction in many a quarter. But let that mind be in thee that was in him, who gave to study to show thyself approved unto thine own good conscience, and unto Father God, that ye know ye must keep in touch with the universal forces. And to those that would be disturbing forces, make ever a soft answer that turneth away those things. Not that ye become as one that is taking blames altogether, but he that is the greatest is the servant of all. In that attitude and in that manner ye will find the work and the surroundings and the conditions changing continuously to better environs, better activities, better conditions in every way. 3. Method of obtaining cooperation. Now, the questions arise, How may we accomplish this? How may we work as individuals whose purposes will be in accord with His will? To answer these we must look within to the little things that go to make up our very nature. We must guard our daily thoughts and acts, and must, through meditation, awaken our inner selves. In the daily walk of life, let us take stock of our thoughts and acts. For cooperation is the offering of self to be a channel of activity, of thought. It is not attained at once, but comes line upon line, precept upon precept, through the giving of self. We must realize that they who would have life must give life. They who would have love must show themselves lovable. They who would have friends must be friendly. They who would have cooperation must cooperate by giving self to that which is to be accomplished, whether in bringing light, strength, health, or understanding to others. These are one in Him. Let us replace our negative thoughts with positive ones, thinking not unkindly of anyone, but speaking and thinking kindly of all. Let us practice thinking kind thoughts of those who have hurt us, letting no opportunity pass to do a little act of kindness that will lighten the burden of another. We should live as we know He would have us live. Begin now. Work. Work diligently and consistently. Let us take thought continually of the attitude of mind we hold. For it makes for that which gives birth to peace, harmony, and understanding, or it brings forth the contending forces that make for unrest and trouble. We will find, when we would do right, that the spirit of unrest is ever present. But day by day this should be put out of our minds and more replaced by thoughts of peace, harmony, and understanding, not a latent kind, but an active force. This is the manner in which we give expression to that being sought. It is a oneness of mind, a oneness of purpose, which we must all seek. The virtue in the knowledge of God, His laws, His precepts, not to the advantage of self, but for others, not for self-edification, but that power and strength may emanate from us to others less strong. Let us seek harmony. For harmony makes for peace, and peace makes for understanding, and understanding for enlightenment. We of ourselves can do nothing. So let us, in meditation, seek the knowledge of the inner light. Set aside a time each day for prayer and meditation, preferably at sunrise, quiet the physical body, purify the emotions, and wait on the Lord. Let us draw nigh unto God, and He will draw nigh unto us. As we enter into meditation, let us visualize the force of harmony and love in action. As we put into practice that which we know of cooperation in deed and in thought, there will come to us His peace which passes understanding, and the realization of being His channel. He has promised that power, strength, joy, life, and light will not be withheld from those who seek this oneness in His name. The Edgar Cayce Readings. Method of obtaining cooperation. Prayer is supplication for direction, for understanding. Meditation is listening to the divine within. Prayer is supplication to God and meditation is listening to His answer. Learn that quiet first within self, from within, through those applications not only of the material things, but from the counsel and meditating from within self, and ye shall stand approved unto Him, wherein there may be the peace and harmony and joy of a life lived in an active service for not only their fellow man, but, forgetting self, pressing on to the mark of the higher calling set in Him, to that day when ye shall stand as a light to many, as a guide to those in the dark ways, and proclaim the acceptable year of thy Lord. Meditate. Meditation means entering into the spiritual vitalization of the energies of the system, by raising those forces through the very activities of procreative actions. Read Meditation first chapter in A Search for God, Book 1, and apply it, practically, the experience of self. Know deep within the heart and soul that ye are a child of the living God. The earth and the fullness, though, is His, and with thy trust wholly in Him as thy guide, Through prayerful meditations as to choices to be taken here, and not just hunches, but rather as with the voice within, there is little that this entity may not accomplish. Then set definite periods for prayer, set definite periods for meditation. Know the difference between each. Prayer, in short, is appealing to the divine within self, the divine from without self, and meditation is keeping still in body, in mind, in heart, listening to the voice of thy Maker. Considering home and church environment we have attempted to create for our children, why do so few take an active interest in the church? Have ye practiced as ye preached? Are ye to judge or thy Maker? Remember, God is the only appreciator of men's attempt or try. Man, poor, miserable man, acts as judge. What can I do to bring about a cooperative effort in the Baptist Church? Just live that, practice that, which is according to the promptings of thy own conscience, not condemning any, but tolerant to all. The entity has been and is in its abilities, and in its urges almost a contradictory individual. For that oft it would do, it does not, or that it preaches, it does not practice too well in its own experience. That it would require of others, is it not guilty of the same in its own self, else how would it know to find the fault in the other fellow? The faults ye find in the other fellow are, as in the looking glass of that concept of thy Maker, and ye know ye are already in error when ye find. All of God, then, that ye may know is that ye use and apply daily in thy relationships with others. For as ye do it unto others, ye do unto thy Maker. There is set before thee today and every day, good and evil, life and death, choose thou the holy way. For as ye keep his precepts, he hath promised, thy body is indeed the temple of the living God, and he will meet thee there. As ye pray, as ye meditate, he may speak with thee. For he is the same yesterday, today and forever, and will be thy God if ye will be his people. Would it be wise for me to teach in the same school another year, or would some other prove more beneficial? If so, what school? If this is agreeable, and if there is the giving out of self for helpfulness, stay where you are. As we find, there needs to be a better correlation with spiritual atmosphere, spiritual reactions within self. Be not only good, be good for something. Know as to what the purposes are within this present experience, and so live that these may be manifested in the life day by day. This is a well-chosen vocation to be of helpfulness to others, but practice that ye preach in the experiences of those about you. How may I be of greater service to humanity through the work in which I am now engaged? Thy prayers heard, thy acceptance, then hold fast. For it is not by some great deed, but rather the little leaven that leaveneth the whole lump. For here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept. Be not impatient, but in due season ye shall see and know and hear, thou good and faithful servant, enter thou into the joys of thy Lord. What changes should I make in my work here at this time, if any? Not any in the immediate. As the opportunities come for the great expansion and development in those fields of activity as indicated, give a word here, a word there. Here a little, there a little, ye may give out to those who seek for physical aid a great mental awakening also. This will be gradual, but the expansion should begin soon. Do I still need to unfold in an individual way before helping others in any definite way? In helping, in giving out to others may the unfoldment come, not in those things that would become as evil spoken of, but in little acts of kindness, little words here and there, for little by little, line upon line, precept upon precept, does one gain in self, and add to others. For it is line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Not some great deed then to show forth the love of the Father God, but just being kind, just being patient, just being humble. These show forth in thy dealings with thy fellow man day by day that ye indeed walk, ye indeed talk, with thy Maker, who has promised to meet thee in the Holy of Holies within thine own self. Then, in thy daily dealings with others, forget not to interpret the lesson, the problem of the day, from a spiritual angle. Not that as of a goody-goody manner, not that as of rote for rote's sake, but, as is expressed in nature, step by step, line by line, precept upon precept, because it gives such security in life, and its expressions in the earth as to make same more worthwhile. Like begets like. Those things that are positive and negative forces combine to form in a different source, or different manifestation, the combinations of which each element, each first principle manifested, has gained from its associations, in its activities, that which has been brought to bear by self or that about it, to produce that manifestation. From Jupiter, we find that the entity is ever ready to help a friend, yet often the entity finds self in the opposite extreme when requiring or desiring a friend to help the entity feels they have forgotten the friendship shown. These are not true laws. For in the manifestation of spirit and mind and matter, like begets like, if the entity shows itself friendly, there will be friends, if the entity manifests itself in those things pertaining to a universal consciousness, that is the good for all rather than the individual, or individual group. Courting favor with others, that there may be favor shown self is not so good, unless it is prompted by a universal desire to be of help in many directions. Is there any specific direction, or activity in my present business, that would lead to greater productivity and outlet for my talents and abilities? As ye would that others should do to you, do ye so to them. This is not merely a tale or an axiom, but this in action creates greater actions that offer opportunities in business, in social, in the economic forces, in home relations, and those of every nature. There is one particular individual with whom I am having special difficulty. How can I best work this out? If the conditions were reversed, how would you have him treat you? These should answer, in thy concept of right and wrong. Though it may seem or appear little, it is the little word that ye may say, it is the little kindness that ye may do, that is the greater service ye may render in this experience, in bringing to thine own self, as well as to others, that of peace and harmony and joy and hope. Please outline definitely what I should do to meet this situation, and bring about harmonious conditions, so that our home may be transformed into the atmosphere of happiness for the benefit of all, especially for the sake of our children. As indicated, here a little, there a little, add to the good thouest in all its phases, bringing all together in harmonious activity not by merely wishful thinking and the attempting to give same to the individual, but by expressing a universal truth. And it will bring more and more harmony in the experience. Saw someone wearing a dress, which I copied and wore. As I tried on left sleeve it was very tight. They told me that is the way it should be. Make me too, just like this, I said. This again is the manifestation of the awakening subconscious forces from within, as is shown in the putting on of apparel. The greater lesson that should be gained from this is that of the ability to judge for self, as the mental awakening comes to the individual for others. As is shown in the ordering of two, that physical element that enters in with the mental of this entity, I, too, will see those conditions, as are made manifest to others. Then gain this, that the individual must awaken, seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For thoughts are deeds and may become miracles or crimes, as the will of the individual finds physical manifestation of same in the material world, for to many minds, those conditions that in one is sin, in another is a glorification of the gifts, as are manifest through the individual. Then, study from the vision obtained in self, correlating same with that desire to show self acceptable unto him, the giver of all good and perfect gifts, making manifest in word, action and deed those lessons gathered, little by little, line upon line, giving them, for that is service to all. As is known by the entity, as is the portion of the entity's own inner self, as one sows so shall one reap. It is not sufficient, however, for any to live by mere trite sayings, or to announce to be tolerant, or to be patient, or to be any of those attributes of the spiritual forces that may manifest themselves through the activities of an entity. Rather must there be little by little, here a line, there a line, the living, the manifesting, of all of these attributes in the experiences of an individual. For as it is meted to those of the fellow man, so will the returns come in the experience of the entity in its associations in the new activities, or in those that are a portion of the entity's experience in the present. For it is not by might nor by power, not by that which may be used to enable one through fame or fortune, or through even the associations of the past, to become as a power, but that which is lived, expressed, given to others as a helpful, hopeful influence in their experience day by day. Thus applying self in the experiences in the present may we find that coming into the experience of the entity which, in body, in mind, may give the great expression of development for self, for those that are in the material world dependent upon the activities of the entity. So may the entity make for itself that advancement. What is meant by stating that the entity, 1265, is sensitive in the present experience? As has been indicated, the entity hears, sees, feels that which he may not put into words, into terms, into understandings to others, but to the entity is comprehensive. Or as may be termed by some, the entity sees visions, experiences voices, is subject to those influences that manifest themselves in various forms or manners. As has been indicated, because of the manner in which the entity has applied those experiences through the sojourns in the earth in the present, as relative to creative forces. For these are as set rules, law, God, love, creative force, whatever term we may express same in. What ye sow, ye reap. The mind is the builder. God is, man is. And the mind is a portion of both the soul and the spirit, the directing force, and is also of the earth earthy. Hence the injunction that has been given, be ye of one mind, one purpose, in Christ. As the entity has thought on same and experienced same, this has grown more and more, though the confusions in those influences, as indicated, have at times made for ups, downs, in the material plane. Those influences also, as in Jupiter, make for that broadness of influences, in the various characters of conditions respecting peoples, places, and the social and religious, or moral life of many individuals, as well as those that make for such changes in groups, classes and masses, and even nations. Again there should be those warnings in accord with same, as to that which the body in its formative years and periods reads, or studies, or considers, as that molds its opinions as respecting that as may be made, or held by others, as well as self, as the ideals of peoples. Not in the prohibitive manner, rather in the counsel that which the body-mind feeds upon, the subconscious forces accept as true, and the soul and spiritual body either become overfed or starved under those things that do not accord with that of a spiritual development. Not as those that would make long faces, or counsels that would become as those of strange conditions, or make for estrangements, that there may be some moral aptitude or condition considered in the relationships and associations, but rather in that manner as, seek ye the Lord in thine youth, when he may be found, when his ways may easily be made thy ways, and when thou art old he will not depart from thee. Seek to know how, and the way in which, all blessings, understandings, all knowledge, comes from the closer knowledge of the living forces in a material existence, that bespeak of the manifestations of a God Spirit in the material world. What are the physical weaknesses from this period, of a former incarnation? The inability to often coordinate the great visions with practicability in action. This may be confusing to the entity in the present. This does not signify impracticability in self, save at periods when there are discussions as to activities of personalities, as relating to acts or deeds within themselves, as it influences or acts upon others. The vision, then, within self, is present as of old. The impracticability of their being personal, individual, or single, or separated from the whole, becomes impractical, in the mind of the present entity. Hence that injunction as has been given, to build ye in the now, in the present, when there may be a whole understanding in self, little by little, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, for the words of the mouth and the meditations of the heart should be in accordance with one another, cooperating one with another. Hence may the Spirit of truth, the life, the light of the world, enter in. How can I externalize my deep spiritual urges better, or bring them to the conscious mind? As ye did in the Atlantean experience, as ye did in the holy city. It is with patience. For, as an Atlantean, as an Uranian, ye jump to conclusions, ye expect many to follow suddenly. They are not capable of doing so. It is little by little, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Give expression each day, in each association, in each activity, in such a way that ye bring hope, faith, the seeking of the better in self that is in others. This is done by the smile, the cheery word, the better expression of minimizing the faults and magnifying the virtues in all. For, it behooves none of us to speak unkindly of the worst of us, no matter how little, mean or unthought. For, the good, the image of the Maker, is there. How may this entity be helped so as to make friends, and get along easily with others? If one would have friends, one must show self-friendly. This is not merely as an idiom, or as a saying, but truth. This should not be merely preached at the entity, but practiced with the entity. Allow a great deal more of the visions to be expressed by the entity. And seek counsel from the entity as to the little things about the home, entertaining, friends and the like. For, there are ideas. Hence give them the opportunity for expression, and not preach at the entity. Who may tell the rose how to be beautiful? Or the incense, as to what beauty it may raise in those for whom it is offered? Love the Lord. Keep his ways. For thou hast chosen well. Be the helper here, there. For, as ye have learned, it is indeed here a little, there a little, line upon line and precept upon precept in which the growth comes to those who seek. Cast not thy pearls before swine. No, as ye have found, only those who seek may find. For as he gave, he came not to save those who are satisfied, but those who hunger for the Lord, for the knowledge of him. And to these minister thou, in thy counsel, in thy help, in all manners, as ye have through thy sojourns in the earth. Thus indeed may thy star shine before others, that others seeing thy works may take hope, and thus bring the glorious day of him, who is the light of the world, into the consciousness of others. As we find, these are wonderful experiences for this body, even in the suffering and in the trouble, if the body will only accept it as such. Ye have taught, ye have preached it in thy literature and thy activities, as to how and as to what spirituality, practically applied in the life of the individual, should create for its environ, if the mental and body mind is the builder of the body. Why not try practicing it in self? These are not harsh words, nor meant to be harsh, but the lack of proper eliminations is the source of infection that causes arthritic tendencies. In the natural consequence of the mind, in reason, this should indicate to such a wonderful, a beautiful mind as this entity, the lack of self-control, the holding back in self of those things that should be stressed in mind, in body. These are indications of the nature of disturbance in the mental self, if the sole purpose is in the right direction. And who could question here the purpose of this entity? Then, in bringing about proper attunement of soul purpose, mind activity, the body results should be creative and helpful, just as the attempt in the mind structure here to create that environ for others. Can one teach greater truths than one practices in one's own life? Yes, for out of the mouths of babes comes the wisdom of the ages. For the sole purpose is set in the oneness of creative forces. How or what can I do to help my husband abundantly fill all of his indebtedness, cancel same, and demonstrate enough over to meet our every need with a surplus to bless the world? O that all, and the self with same, would gain that consciousness, use thou me, O Lord, as thou seest that I, as thy servant, may serve you better. And to be, then, in whatsoever position ye find thyself, not satisfied, but spiritually, mentally, content. For without contentment no peace may be had. But if peace is found, if harmony is obtained in self, then may there be the greater outpouring of the blessings of the Father, whether in material, mental, or what not, upon thee and thy household. How gave he of old? Seek first the kingdom of heaven, have it within, and all these things may be added unto thee in their respective places. This ye know, this ye see, but to be busy at same is the greater problem of every individual, which comes back to that which has so oft been given. So in thy conversation, in thy daily activity, the seed of the Spirit, and leave the results with the Father. What is meditation? It is not musing, not daydreaming, but as you find your bodies made up of the physical, mental and spiritual, it is the attuning of the mental body and the physical body to its spiritual source. Many say that ye have no consciousness of having a soul, yet the very fact that ye hope, that ye have a desire for better things, the very fact that ye are able to be sorry or glad, indicates an activity of the mind that takes hold upon something that is not temporal in its nature, something that passeth not away with the last breath that is drawn, but that takes hold upon the very sources of its beginning, the soul, that which was made in the image of thy Maker, not thy body, no, not thy mind, but thy soul was in the image of thy Creator. Then, it is the attuning of thy physical and mental attributes seeking to know the relationships to the Maker. That is true meditation. How do you accomplish same? How would ye as an individual go about learning to meditate? For, ye must learn to meditate, just as ye have learned to walk, to talk, to do any of the physical attributes of thy mind as compared to the relationships with the facts, the attitudes, the conditions, the environs of thy daily surroundings. Then, there must be a conscious contact with that which is a part of thy body physical, thy body mental, to thy soul body, or thy superconsciousness. Then, purify thy mind if ye would meditate. How? Depending on what is thy concept of purification. Does it mean to thee a mixing up with a lot of other things, or a setting aside of self, a washing with water, a cleansing or purifying by fire, or what not? Whatever thy concept is, be true to thine inner self. Live that choice ye make, do it. Not merely say it but do it. Purify thy body. Shut thyself away from the cares of the world. Think on that as ye would do to have thy God meet thee face to face. That he gave of old is as new today, as it was in the beginning of man's relationship, or seeking to know the will of God, if ye will but call on him within thine inner self. Know that thy body is the temple of the living God. There he has promised to meet thee. And when thou art shown, turn not thy face the other way, but be true to the vision that is given thee. And he will speak, for his promise has been, when ye call I will hear, and will answer speedily. Then, when he speaks, open thy heart, thy mind to the opportunities, to the glories that are thine, if ye will but accept them through that attuning through meditation of thy consciousness, thy desire to the living God, and say and live within thyself as he of old gave, others may do as they may, but as for me, I will worship, yea, I will serve the living God. He is not far from thee. He is closer than thy right hand. He standeth at the door of thy heart. Will ye bid him enter? Or will ye turn away? 4. Realization to cooperation. As the realization of a perfect cooperation in him comes to us, there will come also the knowledge of our oneness with the creative force of the universe. Self-interest will be eliminated. Joy and happiness, found in service, will reign in our hearts. Our bodies and our minds will function more perfectly, because the creative force, which ever seeks expression in all, has been aroused in us. Understanding will come as quietly as the silent shadows of night, and his everlasting peace will live in our hearts. There is perhaps no better way to illustrate this realization than to quote a few of the experiences of those who have sought light and understanding through cooperation. In experiencing cooperation, I have been led into a greater field of spiritual understanding and realize that I am a channel through which his will may be done. I experienced in my trials a feeling of cooperation from our study group, in that through their prayers and meditations I realized that nothing but good could come to me. All fear was allayed. I knew that justice and mercy would prevail. There came to me a feeling of contentment, a willingness to leave all in His hands, and a realization that all was well. With the cooperation of our study group, I have been better able to understand my own individual purpose in relation to the whole purpose of life. At times, when our cooperation was greatest, I have been able to feel myself being a perfect channel through which God manifested. During the nights following such attunements, I have had visions and dreams that were testimonies to me of growth and development. I have realized that faithful repetition of efforts which make for cooperation brings at times a feeling of unity with all with whom I work, and a nearness of His presence, which shows that His promise, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them, is sure. In my meditation, I have seen our study group come together and form a complete circle, each member of the group being represented by a dot. Each one in the circle seemed to call the others by name and bless them. The circle now turned to a wheel, the dots becoming spokes. Each spoke represented a member of the group. Each spoke became a channel, leading outward from the hub, where was seen the Christ light. As the blessings of love, harmony, peace, and understanding flowed from the Christ through the channels, the wheel was able to turn. This was cooperation in action. As the wheel revolved, members of the group or channels were able to turn other wheels, which were helping to bring the world to light, love, harmony, and true understanding. These are the goals for each of us to reach in our varied experiences: unity of purpose, oneness of mind, in that His will, not ours, nor our personalities, may be manifested in all that we do and teach. Let us be patient and untiring in seeking this cooperation, for we will be preparing ourselves to go on in the study and understanding of spiritual forces, and will become active channels for these higher forces. We will be better husbands, better wives, better neighbors, and better friends. The little world in which we live will be happier for our being a part of it. We will bring more joy and happiness to those about us, and will be manifesting God's love for us. The way is being opened for all who will to have a part in the redemption of humanity. We must keep our hearts singing, not in sorrow, but in gladness of purpose, for of all those chosen of Him we should be the happiest. May our united efforts go through the ages to those yet unborn, regenerating them to that awakening which makes all souls safe in the knowledge of Him who made all things, for without Him was not anything made that was made. Not my will but Thine, O Lord, be done in me and through me. Let me ever be a channel of blessings, today, now, to those that I contact in every way. Let my going in, my coming out be in accord with that Thou would have me do, and as the call comes, here am I, send me, use me. The Edgar Cayce Readings. 4. Realization of cooperation. The first lesson for 6 months should be 1. 1. Oneness of God, oneness of man's relation, oneness of force, oneness of time, oneness of purpose, oneness in every effort, oneness. Is there any spiritual advice I need at this time? The spiritual advice is innate within self. Arouse self to that being most helpful to others brings to self the greatest satisfaction, and most of all contentment, that I am a channel of blessing, through him, to my fellow man. In what does my greatest happiness and development lie? As indicated, in a service to thy fellow men through the abilities, which are latent, and that may be made manifest materially, if the spiritual attitude and aptitude is kept. How and where can I make contacts in carrying out my life work? Begin where thou art, using today those abilities in the various fields of activity to demonstrate the love of the Christ life that thou knowest innately within thee. But be joyous in all thou doest. Smile often, for smiling is catching, but sadness drives away. Will I be able to solve with such help all the continuous problems which seem to try, one after another, to put me out of business? If thy business is in keeping with that which is a manner of being of service to thy fellow man, ye will not be put out of business. If ye use spiritual guidance, spiritual direction, that ye may ensnare, or use thy fellow man for thine own self-aggrandizement, thine own self-indulgences, ye do so to thine own undoing. Let thy life and thy business, then, be such that is in keeping with that way in which ye serve a living God, and ye may be sure it has its place in his way with the world. How may I serve my boss better, in order for a better understanding? Serve in the manner as he has given thee, the master has given, not with an eye to service other than in the manners that are in keeping with the principles of the organization, as to its service to the public, as it professes in itself to be. Know that life is not just all to live, but to make it, life, creative, as it of its nature is, and not in that of self-indulgence nor self-aggrandizement, for these only bring disappointments, heartaches, headaches. Only that which is eternal or creative in its motive, in its purpose, can be and is that which brings harmony, joy and blessings. For deep and innate in self too oft ye find ye grow tired of whatever is happening and want change. Change comes soon enough, but it is self that ye must conquer. The spirit is willing, flesh is weak. Conquer ye in self the desire of personal aggrandizement, of self-exaltation, and let all ye do be done to the glory of God, and it will be to the honor of self. Not to honor self and glorify self, thus honoring God, but to the glory of God through him, who is able to make thee whole, who may, if ye will allow him to enter in, abide with thee. For as he has promised, what ye ask in my name, believing, ye have already, if thou hast then prepared thy mind, thy purpose and thy ideal being correct, it is already thine. Use it to the glory of God, to the honor of self. Not as a boastful thing, for it is lent thee as thy life, as thy person, as thy beauty, as thy form, as thy mind, as thy body, to the glory of God, not to the gratifying of earthly appetites, but in beauty, in love, in harmony, in joy. These bring peace into thy soul, that brings harmony and joy into the life of all. Please give any further advice, which would help me to better serve at this time. Know that the abilities, the possibilities, as well as opportunities, lie within thine own conscience and thine own self, as may be approached only through the spiritual purpose of the entity. Whether this applies to the spiritual, the mental or the material life, know that all is one. For, as the spirit is one, so should thy purpose in body, in mind, in soul be one. As may be inferred, peace within self first must be found, which comes from the abiding faith in the universal consciousness, or love as manifested by Jesus the Christ. This first applied in self, then in the associations with others, especially of those groups in those directions indicated, we will find harmony, a life experience, which will bring not only a better place for others to live, but more harmony in self's own experience. For if ye would be the greater, ye will be the servant of all. This doesn't mean being the footpad. It means that ye offer that which ennobles in thy principles before thy fellow men, but if ye will look at it materially, it makes them beholden to thee. Any spiritual advice? Make the opportunities for an active service in keeping with the ideals of the spiritual life. A lot in a few words, but they should cover much for the body. Do keep that mental attitude of being not only good, but good for something. Have a definite goal as a contribution not only to the pleasure of self, but for someone else, or for several others, sometime each day. Think of others, for in the helping of others you will help yourself. Study to show thyself approved, then, a workman not ashamed in whatever field of service thou hast chosen or dost choose, but in those activities, as indicated may the best service be rendered, and keep self unspotted from condemnation of self and thy fellow man. I have used service as love's symbol, but somewhere have missed. Where? Who is to find fault? He did not. He does not. He only gives, ever, listen. Listen to that within. I will speak and direct the way. Reserve nothing within, as to purpose, as to individuality, or as to personality, but wholly for love, for service. 4. He that will be the greatest among you will be the servant of all. Service, then, as it should be in the experience of every soul, is the outlet through which the inner self may find the greater satisfaction. Keep ever that as of the constructive, that is, knowing there is much for thee to do as a witness for the creative forces, for God, for Christ. These ye manifest by thy relationships with thy fellow man. Be happy, be in that attitude of ever being helpful to others. These will bring that peace within that is the promise from him. Be helpful in thine hopefulness for self towards others, thus creating in self a proper mental balance. Make, then, thine experience worthwhile in that which may create or bring about in the experience of others helpful hopefulness in their experience, not as to material benefits, but that which arouses the spirit within each and every soul, the desire to do something for the other fellow. First, know thy ideal, spiritual, mental, material. And know that unless it is founded upon that which is eternal, it will fade and die away. Then, apply thyself in those directions as indicated, in ministering to the needs of others, and ye will find those blessings coming as have been indicated, in that lo, I am with thee always, even unto the end of the world. Know that this means you, and thy ability to give to others the greater awakening, as to his consciousness in their lives and their daily dealings with others. In the mental and the associations, the mental outlook on life, the attitude of life that the world and the conditions and surroundings are at variance to self is all wrong. Rather do something for the world, than having the world do something for you. Act in a way and manner, as that a service to others will be the highest service, as may be rendered for self. That held in the mental forces of the body as a grudge can only create poisons, can only create distrust, disruption, disorder, discouragement through the whole activities of self. Any other advice regarding any of these at this time? First, of course, is the health, then the purpose or ideal. And let more of this be set in the spiritual. Not as long-facedness, but as joyousness for a service well rendered, that there may be builded the better, the greater opportunities for the service to the fellow man. What should my next step be in order to be of service to one and meet my financial obligations? These become rather conflicting in their import, but know, O child of light, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the silver and the gold are mine, saith the Lord. He knoweth what thou hast need of. Be willing to put thy service to thy fellow man, thy service in a commercial world, into his hand. For God alone giveth the true increase. Fear not, if ye are in the Lord's hands. Fear rather if ye have slipped from same. Please explain and clarify the karmic conditions which I should understand and meet, in order to be a better wife, mother and friend, and fill more adequately my place in this work. There has been given those outlines as to the varied experiences that were held by the entity in the appearances, and associations with varied individuals that comprise the household in the present, and the activities of the mental body as related to those who only in part, or through other experiences, brought activities in their experience. Then, with that just given above, there may be seen the varying forces that produce karmic influence. But, that may be found in oneness with that of He, God, is one, and making self in an at-one-ment, is not only denying any other influence, but acting in the way knowing that he will bear thee up, and give his angels charge concerning thee in the way thou goest, lest thou dash thine self against a barrier. Then, when there arises those experiences where fear comes from faltering in self or another, force self, by will, I will to give, live and know that he doeth all things well in and through the expression of the Father in every soul. Then may the body in the present, the body consciousness, the mental consciousness, have that peace that passeth understanding, that comes from an at-one-ment in the consciousness of his love dwelling within. What advice can you give me to doing something to earn money, as I have 4 families depending on my support? I worry and can't sleep over it. As we would find, from those activities where there have been the incomes, the helps and the aids that have been given for others, from those characters and natures may there be expected to come resources to carry on. For that ye give of yourself in service to others, that ye retain. These come back to self, as in the sowing of good deeds. These are not as idle words, but if the service is given that ye may have good things only, you already have your reward. But in keeping in the helpfulness for others, in the activities in that direction may there come the greater service to self, to those dependent upon self. And ye know in whom ye have put thy trust, ye should know, ye do know. Ye have only lost thy hold, thy grip, by the things and for the things that are of the moment. For the earth is the Lord's. Trust rather in him. And as ye do to others may it be done to thee. Now as we find, in giving advice and counsel regarding the activities of this entity, many things are to be taken into consideration. Not those alone from the material angle. For unless there is peace and happiness in the service the entity has taken respecting its relationships to the individual and to the public, and unless such activities be prompted by higher or more constructive motives than material gains, little of peace and happiness may be the lot of the entity. For unless there is a service to the fellow man in bringing into the material experience relief from suffering, the aid to that of more hope, and to a brighter outlook upon the experiences, such an activity becomes as very, very little of a glory or satisfaction even in the experience. It is not always necessarily those who are capable of bringing joy into the experience of others that are outwardly joyous, but the very nature, the very desire for that ability to do such may bring, under any circumstance, that of hopefulness, that seed of the spirit that is creative in its nature. For fortune and fame take wings and fly away, and only that ye give do ye possess. It is not what ye have accumulated that ye possess, but that ye build in the minds and hearts and souls of others that indeed is thine. Then if ye would have friends, show thyself friendly, not in a manner as of material or only a social manner, but deeply. If ye would have love, show love. For these beget themselves. For what ye sow ye reap. Please guide me with information that will enable me to become of greater service to my fellow man. There's none better than we have given, and as may be followed by that which may be brought to the awareness of self through the practical application of those meditative forces that come by setting aside a definite time, a period during each day's activity when there will be the purifying of the body, as in accord with that which would make for consecrating of self in all of its efforts, all of its abilities, and entering into the Holy of Holies within self for that talk with thy God within thyself. These efforts on the part of any soul will bring those things that make for the greater peace and happiness, and the abilities to meet those emergences of every nature that arise within the physical and mental bodies of a living body. For then the God forces that are the creative energies of the soul mind will become the ruling forces in the life, and in its activity and same, making for those abilities wherein any soul, any entity, may become the greater service, the greater factor in its associations with its fellow man. It is not how much one knows that counts, but how well one applies that it knows, in just being, doing, thinking, that which is pointed out to self through such constant, consistent, practical dependence upon the creative forces that have promised ever to meet one, every one, when sought. And there will come that which is for the greater development in the soul forces of such an one that seeks. Yes, we have the work of the glad helpers and the members present in this room. In the work in which these are engaged, there is a great deal more good being accomplished than is usually seen. Well, however, that they do not parade the good accomplished. Let this speak rather in the hearts and the lives of those that the group would aid. All will find, as they contribute of themselves in doing a service for their fellow man, that harmony and peace, which comes from the spirit of truth and life, as they manifest same in their own lives will be magnified in their activities, bringing joy.